So in this video I thought I'd show how Manchester United can actually build a squad that can at least be in the conversation of the Premier League title for most of next season, without actually having to blow a lot of money, but through selling and buying in high volume and making sure that any big fees you do pay are actually spent on players who are going to make an instant impact and improve the squad through their current ability, rather than paying big fees for players who may take 2 or 3 years or even more to reach their potential. I'll wait till after January to release my official who Manchester United should sign in the summer of 2025, just in case anything changes with players moving in the last few days of the window. So I think the theory behind Todd Boehly and Chelsea's transfer strategy of selling and buying players in high volume each year is actually the most effective way of transforming a squad from a mid-table level side to Premier League challengers within a short period of time, especially when working within the FFP and PSR parameters, and I'm going to show you how I would do it with Manchester United. So let's say in 2025 we sell Rashford for £35 million in the summer, Xerxes for £35 million, which was the release clause that we paid last summer, Garnacho for say £55 million even if it was to Chelsea, Højlund for £45 million, Casemiro just get his wages off the wage bill, Anthony for £10 million after his loan to Betis, Sancho we're getting another £25 million in the summer, and let's say Shaw and Malacia combined, probably around £10 million. That's about £215 million in player sales roughly, and of course this is only a rough figure as it's a YouTube video, not an accountancy report. From here, re-sign Alvaro Fernandez for £8.5 million after triggering the buyback and getting the 50% sell-on clause, bring in Frank-Andre Anguissa for squad depth in central midfield, and send Toby Collier out on loan, unless we're struggling for homegrown players, in which case we'd probably have to keep Toby Collier and forget about Anguissa, sign Victor Gyökeres for £62 million, Cunha for around £55 million if he doesn't leave in January, Ryan Cherki for £20 million, Frimpong for his £33 million release clause, and then bring in one of Chris Wood or Jonathan David on a free as a backup centre forward, and then have one of Harry Amas or Diego Leon as the backup left wing back, which because of their ages would help us from a homegrown point of view, with Dalot also capable of being used as a makeshift left wing back if Amas or Leon aren't ready for a specific game for example. And then from here, because you've brought in Jonathan David maybe, and even Frank-Andre Anguissa on free transfers, you've got the option of selling them on in the summer of 2026 for pure profit. That will cost around £180 million, which I think already improves the squad, and that is still a net negative transfer spend of around £45 million. And considering we should at least be able to break even with our transfer spend this summer, you could then go and get Tijani Reinders from AC Milan for around £50 million, and that's a £5 to £10 million net spend, and I genuinely believe that this is a squad capable of at least challenging for the Premier League title next season, going at least until February or March. We've sold 8 players with Lindelof, Evans, Tom Heaton and Christian Eriksen leaving on frees, whilst also signing 4 players in Gyökeres, Cunha and Jeremy Frimpong for a combined £170 million. 2 players on free transfers, either Jonathan David or Chris Wood, let's go with Jonathan David for now, and maybe also Anguissa, which would take us to 5 main signings and 2 free transfers. And so I think that's completely realistic and doable, assuming Cunha doesn't move in the next week or so. And what I really like about this squad is the options in the front 3. But before I break down exactly why, a quick reminder, I do have an in-game Instagram group chat where we have discussions and analysis throughout all the Manchester United games. I am also writing a tactical ebook which should be out either at the end of this month or the start of the next month. And if you are in a group chat when that is released, you will get it for free, which will work out a bit cheaper if you were to buy it without being in the group chat at all. So if you do want to sign up to the Patreon, I'll leave it linked in all the usual places, the eye above, description, comment section, and on the end screen after this video. So in this hypothetical situation, we sold Højlund, Xerxes and Garnacho for £135 million, all of whom are players who certainly do have potential and could be elite level players in the future, but on current ability, realistically they're mid-table level players, and not what I would describe as consistent match winners throughout a whole season. And using that money, we've upgraded them with Victor Gyökeres, who is one of the most complete and clinical strikers in the world at the moment, and most definitely a match winner, Cunha, who is currently one of the best players in the league, whilst playing for a side fighting relegation, and has already shown this season and even last season that he's most definitely a match winner. Ryan Cherki, who on pure ability is one of the most talented playmakers in world football, and definitely also a player that can win you a match on their own. So now you have 3 players who legitimately have the quality to turn a tight game in your favour, which I just feel like Garnacho, Højlund and Xerxes don't have to the same level, and for a combined fee of just over £135 million, which is what we probably should be able to bring in for selling the other 3. I just don't see how that's not a great deal. I just don't understand, if we are tight for money, why we would spend £35 million on a player like Dogu. I mean, is signing Dogu really going to push us closer to the title in the next 2 seasons? Not really. We would be signing Dogu for the player he would become in 3 to 4 seasons, but we haven't got that luxury. We did this with Lenny Yoro, Højlund, Xerxes and Anthony. I mean, just sort out the team for the next 1 to 2 seasons, and then after that look beyond it. It's like putting down a deposit for a loft extension when you're scrimping and saving money for the foundations and ground floor. If you are spending over £20 million on a player, they have to be starting players, or at least players at the level to be starters, which is a key distinction I'm going to come on to with Shirky in just a minute. For the fee that Dogu would cost, we could sign Alvaro Fernandez and still have £25 million left in the bank. And even though people may argue that Dogu could play as a right wing back as well, I mean that doesn't really help us, because we need a right-footed right wing back in order to play behind Ahmad when he plays further forward. Dogu behind Ahmad is just a stylistic clash, with both players wanting to move inside into the same areas, and a left footer behind Ahmad doesn't really complement him stylistically or provide the balance in the system. Frimpong would cost around the same as Dogu and is a far better player on current ability and only 4 years older, whilst also being a perfect stylistic fit to play behind any one of Ahmad, Cherki, Bruno Fernandes or Mason Mount. And this gives Amorim so many variations. For example, in a game like the Rangers one, where we know we are going to dominate possession from the start, and ideally we want to be 2 or 3 goals up by the 60th minute mark, we could go with the same back 3, Yoro, De Ligt and Martinez, maybe switching in Mazraoui or Dalot at right sided centre back depending on who the opposition's left winger is, Bruno Fernandes in a double pivot, but rather than Toby Collier, you could have Tijani Reinders, a massive upgrade, Ahmad at right wing back, Alvaro Fernandez on the left, Cherki and Cunha either side of Gyökeres. See, usually United are relying on really only Bruno Fernandes or Ahmad to be the match winners, but now you've got Cherki, Cunha and Gyökeres, who are 3 players with the quality to create or score out of nothing and win you a match on their own. If all goes to plan and we are 2 or 3 up by the 60th minute mark, you can take off Ahmad for Dalot if he isn't starting, one of Maguire or Mazraoui for Yoro, with De Ligt then maybe moving to right-sided centre-back if it's Maguire coming on, bring on Mainu and Agate for Reinders and Cherki, shift Bruno Fernandes into the front 3 with Cunha and Gyökeres to shore things up, but still maintain a degree of control in the game. You've then been able to rest Ahmad and Cherki, playing them only 60 minutes rather than 90 minutes, and brought on players like Agate, Maguire, Dalot or Mazraoui, whoever it is that comes on, to shore things up and see out the win. But maybe against Fulham on the weekend, Amorim maybe wants a better defensive and pressing option than Cherki from the start, and so he could use Bruno Fernandes on the right side of the front 3, and bring Agate into the midfield double pivot alongside Reinders, specifically to deal with the threat of Emil Smith-Rowe, Iwobi and Traore in the transition on the counter-attack, and then use one of Dalot or Frimpong at right wing back in order to deal with the threat of Robinson overlapping. And then if the game gets to half time or 60 minutes into the game and United still need a goal, that's when Amorim could bring Cherki and Ahmad off the bench for Agate and either Frimpong or Dalot, and drop Bruno Fernandes deeper into the midfield double pivot alongside Reinders, or even move Dalot to right-sided centre-back to give the side greater ball progression from that area, and instead take off Yoro or Mazraoui for Ahmad, and then even bring on Maguire for De Ligt at the centre of the back 3, giving United greater incisive and long passing from that position, and also a greater goal threat from set pieces as well. You've still got Mainu and Anguissa who can come in when needed, because remember there's still going to be injuries pretty much throughout the whole season, and both Anguissa and Mainu have different skill sets to Agate, Reinders and Bruno Fernandes, and so whatever tactical problem comes up, Amorim has a lot of variations in the double pivot that he can use. But coming up against the top sides where maybe Manchester United aren't going to control possession, and maybe even have to drop a bit deeper and sit in a more conservative defensive shape, such as against Liverpool, Arsenal, City or Chelsea, Amorim can then go with a more conservative strategy, using Dalot and Alvaro Fernandes as the wing-backs, a back 3 of De Ligt and Martinez either side of Maguire, with Agate and Mainu in central midfield to start, Ahmad in the front 3 alongside Gyökeres and Cunha, in order to take advantage of his athleticism and acceleration in the press, and then from the bench Amorim has plenty of options depending on what the game state calls for, from the pace of Frimpong, another industrious central midfielder in the form of Anguissa, Reinders' ball carrying ability and press resistance, Bruno Fernandes' creativity and versatility, and Cherki as a wild card to unlock a defence if United are chasing a goal, and that's not even mentioning players like Yoro, Mazraoui, Mount if he's ever fit, and even a backup striker like Jonathan David. I mean, I think it's fair to say the quality in this squad, particularly in the starting lineup, is insane. Cherki, Cunha, Gyökeres, Bruno Fernandes, Ahmad and Tijani Reinders are all capable of having elite level seasons next campaign, but also the quality and depth would be as strong as anyone else in the league, with players like Frimpong, Dalot, Mainu, Anguissa or Collier, Mazraoui, Yoro, Maguire and Jonathan David all being players who are reliable to come into the side when needed and maintain the level without a significant drop-off, which we currently see when practically any of our starting players are injured. This squad would also have significantly more athleticism, pace and physicality, with Gyökeres, Cunha, Anguissa, Reinders, Frimpong and Alvaro Fernandes all bringing at least 2 of these. Reinders and Cunha are 2 of the best ball carriers through the centre, aiding United immensely when they're able to bait the opposition midfield into pushing up high, creating those artificial counter-attacks during the build-up phase, or on the transition after a turnover when United are looking to counter quickly. Gyökeres and Cunha in the front line, and Frimpong and Alvaro Fernandes from wing-back providing the speed and the movement in behind the back line, whilst the individual aerial ability of United during defensive and offensive set pieces is also significantly improved, with Gyökeres, Cunha, Anguissa and Alvaro Fernandes all being 6 foot or taller, which alongside players like De Ligt, Maguire and Yoro, once he improves his physicality and ability to win aerial duels, should see United scoring more from offensive set pieces and definitely conceding less from defensive ones. Now I am going to be doing videos going through the tactical setup with these players in the squad, so let me know what specific tactical questions you want answered. Also, rate this out of 10. I did a previous one, this is a more updated one because Nuno Mendes has signed a contract and obviously we've got the FFP and PSR situation. But if you do want to sign up to the Patreon and get into the Instagram group chat, as well as get the ebook for free when it does come out in about a week or so, I'll leave the Patreon linked on the end screen now.